Hey everybody, welcome back to the Spinner Rack. I'm here with my boy Cal. Say what's up, Cal.
Hey, ready to rock.
And we are doing our review of Netflix hit show Vikings Valhalla. It dropped about what, a week ago or two at the max. I'm not 100% sure. It's February 25th. Dropped on February 25th. And hey, we finished our review of it, our look at it, and we're going to tell you what we think about it. Once again, I'm going to have my boy Cal. Cal, what is your take on this new interpretation of Vikings, starring, of course, not the actors, but starring the Harold Hadrada, you know, Friedrich's daughter, and of course, Leif Erikson, the brother, her brother. What's your take on this whole thing? If you want to give a brief synopsis, that's fine too, but give me your thoughts on it, bro.
Oh, there's no reason for. I really don't want to give a synopsis on this because it has very little connection to the history, at least from where I stand. I just feel this is a show very much searching for a reason to exist. You had a successful show in Vikings, and of course, well, Hollywood comes knocking. I think we can make some money here, and so let's try to keep the Vikings franchise going. So we give it the same title, Vikings, so people have some name recognition. But we want to differentiate, so we'll put Valhalla, which has nothing to do with the show at all. And then we have characters that are so loosely based on the actual historical figures, and then we're just off to the races. And then they play the same notes. There's going to be there'll be some battles, wars, some trickery, but at the end of the day, I wonder the entertainment value is pretty midway at the end of the day. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. It's not something I could say is it's not necessarily must TV. It's not horrible. It's right there. If you got some time to kill, you want something to watch, it's right up that alley. But there's no real strong I just don't get a strong feeling for the show at all. If there was no second season, I would be just fine.
Oh wow, talk about strong. I am totally on the opposite. Look, let's just start off. I'll cut off my criticism right now. Let me give you the positives. I think the show is very entertaining. I think the actors who play the characters, the guy who's Sam Corlett, who's Leif Erikson, he's quiet, he's dour, but he knows his stuff. He's a shipwright. He's the one who gets the whole Greenlanders into Kattegat, through a storm. We have his sister, Freydis, actress Frida Gustafsson. I believe she was a model at one point. And of course, my man, Leo Sutter, who plays Harold Sigurdsson, of course, also known as Harold Harada in history. Lastly, don't forget Bradley Freegard, King Canute. Love that dude too. And what else would I round it off? I guess Queen Emma of Normandy. I'm not sure her name is Laura Berlin. Those are some of the best characters. Those are really, really good characters when they do it. Oh my gosh, I keep saying that. And I found another character, Goodwin. Love Goodwin too. I believe his name, I can't remember the name of that actor. Wait, one more. I'm sorry, I keep saying no more. Ola, Harold Hardrada's brother. And how you think he comes off as a big oaf and a nut and a bumbling fool, but he's actually much smarter than people are giving him credit for. And of course he's being set up as the antagonist of the season and probably the whole series going forward. But I just like the way that they go into this season. All those characters were really strong on their own. Are they really historic? Are they historical people? Many of them are. Not all of them. Are they? What can I say? Are they following the whole history? No, they're not. I mean, that is definitely, to me, has been one of the big problems I've always had with the Vikings, even as far back as the original series. We like Bjorn, but Bjorn didn't do the things according to the sagas. We like Ivar the Boneless. We didn't do everything he was said in the way they made the characters. It's very possible these guys could have been the way they acted, but this is this guy's interpretation. Rightly or wrong, this is interpretation. The question is, am I being entertained? I can overlook some of that. It bothers me. I trip up on the show, but I come back and say, hey, I like the battles. I like the story. I like the characters. So the problem is that you just put a wrong label on it. I go to the restaurant, I say I'm ordering a cheeseburger, and you give me a turkey burger. It's not the same thing, but it still tastes good. I'll just eat it and suck it up for the time being. So, that's my take on it right there.
Well, yeah, I don't think that's too far away from what I said.
So
it's just it's it's not horrible, it's not awful, but in the same time, a lot of the stuff, I mean, with the original series, and that's again, that is still a problem for me because you had the original series, and the original series, those first 4 seasons was great. Excellent acting for Travis Finnell. And you also had a legendary figure, not a historical figure, but a legendary figure in Ragnar Lothbrok. So there was a lot of room to play around with him and Lagertha. Once you start moving into, you know, Bjorn Ironside and Ivar the Boneless, these are actual historical figures. And while there may not necessarily be a great amount of documented, you know, stuff to source on them, there are things to source on them. And I've seen that the closer they get to uh, even if it's 1,000 years ago, the closer they get to modern history, it's like the more these guys struggle and they want to make stories out of whole cloth. I said, well, if that's the case, you know, create your own character, you know, create your own characters at the end of the day. But and they also seem to struggle with, they want to give everybody something to do. So Harold the Rod and Leif Erikson, they have stuff to do. You know, we understand that these guys are, you know, historical figures. But then I looked at the whole story for Freitas, and they like really, you know, gave her like a lot. You know, they gave her a lot of backstory. They turned her into the chosen one. In some instances, she was Rey Skywalker, and you know, I was just like, okay, instead of necessarily doing this with her, you know, is there more that we could have given to the, you know, we could have given to somebody like Leif Erikson or Harold Harada at the end of the day? But then it becomes no, because we want a strong female character, so we're going to do these particular things here. Same thing with Kattegat. You know, we want these characters as well. And I understand, because we discussed this, that the show has, or at least the previous show had a large female viewership. But what I always say is that the show had a large female viewership in those first few seasons, and they weren't doing any of this stuff. You know, the guys were still the lead, and you know, that was it, and it still had a really large female viewership. So I don't understand the changes that they make once they realize, oh, we got a large female viewership, so we got to come over here and make these tweaks. And it doesn't necessarily, I mean, if it helps the story, sure. If it just seems like, okay, we're just gonna give more story to the female character because we have a large female viewership, and I don't really see how it ties in overall to the story. Even, you know, even worse, once you start stepping into Mary Sue territory, I really think that undercuts things overall. But you know, I don't know, I mean, they keep hitting the same notes, and I mean, how many times do I have to see the show, and you know, the king isn't prepared to be king, but guess who knows all? The queen. She knows all. Listen to her advice, because she can advise you to do so on and so forth. And I'm like, how many of these kings, at least on TV, all these shows, these kings always seem to be totally unprepared to take the throne. They're just not ready. But the queen, yeah, you know, she knows. She came over here, you know, and it's always the same thing. No, be patient. Don't rush out there. Don't do that. But they don't present any sort of compelling argument to get them to stay. So they rush out, and then of course it was a trick. And then they sit back there like, if only these people would listen to me. So those same notes they keep hitting. If you want to dramatize the falling of London Bridge, okay, great. But you're still hitting these same notes, and they become trite after, you know, at the end of the day. They really did a disservice to Edward Ironside, who, I mean, his reign was very short. It was less than a year, maybe about 8 or 9 months altogether. But he earned the name Ironside from his, you know, his bravery and his prowess on the battlefield. And the way that they treated him in the show was that he was just total incompetent, inept, and you know, that was it. So for all of that, you could have just came into the show after he was dead. We didn't need to necessarily see him. Okay, so those type of things I look on the show, and I think those are poor decisions in terms of storytelling, and it just doesn't help overall. We see the fall of Kattegat. They definitely heavily want to stress the friction between Christian. I mean, these are Viking Christians and Viking pagans. They heavily want to stress that, but then I kind of shrug my shoulders to it, because at the end of the day, we know who wins out, and I don't feel myself willing to root for one side or the other, and that's something that you need to have in the show. All right, it's not enough the characters win or the characters are successful. Viewers need to want them to be successful, and not just kind of a shrug shoulder. Well, you know, he's the hero, she's the heroine, so we expect him to win. Like, no, because of the way that their story has been presented, we are totally invested in seeing this character be successful. They should I don't they could borrow a lot of stuff from The Last Kingdom, because that was something that was executed over the course of 5 seasons. And yeah, when you watch it, you watch the main character, you watch the other characters around them, and you want nothing but the best for those characters. And then the other guys, yeah, you want to see those guys have the worst comeuppance, but that's because their craftsmanship with the storytelling was so good. This is not that.
Yeah, well, I think that you definitely have some comments that are pretty interesting there. I mean, I think that you can't. One thing I do like is that they closed off that whole candidate story. Candidate gets sacked, is taken over by Olaf's brother. Yes, we're spoiling it. Sorry, bro. If you haven't seen it, then just wait. Don't look at this review. But yeah, Candidate gets sacked. So that whole Candidate storyline is, I think, I assume, will be over with now, because I don't believe Candidate is a real place. Or not as how it's portrayed in the show. So it's done with. Now Olaf is king of Norway. He's won. He's tricked everybody. So be it. But in terms of we have one female in terms of Freydis, who is like a warrior. She's the last of the pagans, and I don't know if she's the chosen one. We don't know if she's the last of what the last pagan may be it, and they're trying to show that is. And then you also have, on the other hand, you have a strong female character in the guise of Emma of Normandy. And one thing we got to remember is that this particular character, she is, I believe, the sister or a relative of William the Conqueror, who will eventually conquer England. And the Normans were what? The Normans came from the Norsemen. They were the ones who settled in France and made a deal with the king. These are Rollos people, if you remember. And, they intermarried with the French there, and they were very warlock people who ended up conquering not only England, but also conquering Italy and the Byzantine Empire, and started the Crusader state. So there's a lot of stuff going on right there. But the key thing here is that I don't doubt her powers. The problem I think we keep forgetting is that history is written by a particular perspective. And when you start looking at other perspectives, you start realizing, wow, there's a lot more here than people even gave credence to. There's a female author, I think her name is Alison Weir, who went back and did a huge amount of research and brought up a lot of history on some of famous, important and powerful female rulers in the in the English medieval period, and French
That's
medieval.
great. So tell their
Hold
story,
on,
and so tell their story and make their story
what I'm saying,
compelling. But
it
don't just give me a character
doesn't take
who's
away.
going to inherit everything because the character is a female.
It doesn't take away from her. And I think the character you have too, one who's showing physical powers in Freydis, and you're showing one who's like, she is a woman, and she's within the role that she has. She's being very powerful there. I don't see that taking away anything. I thought Edmund was fine. He's just young, impetuous, and that's all that costs. I don't think that's a big deal.
Yeah, young, impetuous, and dead. But that's not the see.
But he's not dead because of her.
They did. But right there is what I'm saying. They took away from a character who had a very strong story and made him impetuous. Okay, made him reckless, and that does what? That builds up the female character story, who we don't necessarily know that was the case. We definitively know about him. Okay, we don't definitively know about her, and then the story is shaped. So, hey, she comes across looking very wise, very strong, very competent, and he comes across looking like a fool. And the history of it, and the history is not the case.
But they changed Harold's history. His history is not basically the same. Yes,
not talking about Harold. I'm talking about that situation right there.
I'm trying to show you that they've changed all their histories. Leaf coming over to Cadogan.
Did they change Harold's history to to make somebody else's character look better?
I think that they have made the way they made him be like, oh, automatically he's like the leader of everything, and everybody wants to compromise with him and his brother. Canute
whose character gets totally inverted because of what was done with Harold.
They make Canute's place a little bit more inverted, and that he's the level that he's being treated. I don't think in history, I don't even think that
Edward's character is undercut, and it
definitively the question. And I'm saying I think the whole thing with Canute and Harold would not have been the same the way it's set up right here. Okay, it would have been a different situation. And so yeah,
there's no other character. There's no other situation like that on the show. It just isn't.
You're just choosing that one. But hey, we can agree
because it's the only one there. There's nothing else to choose. That's the only one.
But you asked me what character, and I told you would not have had a character like Canute. Wouldn't have been dealing with someone like Harold the way he is there, where he's like, "Hey, Prince, you decide what you want to do."
Well, again, like I said, A
So
character, somebody's history is inverted to make somebody else's character stronger. There's nobody. That's the only situation on the show.
but they're doing the show. No, they're doing it all over the
Because
show.
Freitas's character, I mean, all that stuff is whole cloth. This whole chosen one stuff, and
I'm not disagreeing with you with that. I totally agree with that. I don't disagree with you on that. But I mean, she's making other characters that whole cloth thing change. But I mean, overall, I did enjoy the show. I think I've watched it, and I think that this is something. If you like Vikings, I think you're going to find this just as interesting. If you like the Last Kingdom, the same thing. I don't know. One thing I do have a little particular, I'm a little weirded out, is that as soon as this show comes on, Viking came on, boom, Last Kingdom comes on. And it's like there's no break.
yes, so we can have something good to watch as opposed to struggling with this. I mean, I just disagree. If you liked Vikings, I think you'll look at this as a pale shadow of what the Viking series was. And if you like The Last Kingdom, if you watch The Last Kingdom, you watch this, you were like, wow, why did I watch this? This was, this is so not either one of those things.
I
You
think it's two
you
different
can't, I mean, there's so much to play around with the actual history.
Yes.
That's what it is. There's so much to play around with the actual history. So for me, it's like, okay, if you decide, and with Ragnar, you were free to do a whole bunch of stuff because this guy is a legendary figure. He doesn't have actual history. But when you have a historical figure, there's a bunch of stuff that we already know. We know beginnings, okay? We know life and we know end. So we have all of those things that are definitive and that we can portray in terms of story. If you decide, no, we don't want to do any of that. Okay, we're gonna do this. It's like making Abraham Lincoln a vampire hunter. Okay, we're gonna do this with it at the end of the day. Okay, if you want to do that with Abraham Lincoln or with the character like Edward Ironside, that's fine. But then you decided to sacrifice an actual events that could have been dramatized for your own events. Your own events should be very good, if not better, than what was already offered to you. We don't have that here in this particular story, and not just with Edward Ironside, but with any of the characters that we're presented with.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I kind of disagree. I think both shows are both entertaining. I think that both shows, I think one tends to lead a little bit more towards. Actually, no, both of them, because Bernard Cornwell, when he was doing The Last Kingdom, he has a whole series of books. I believe it's up to eight or nine or 10 books right now, and he has taken the time to really break down what it is, and he's trying to really root it in history. And so there's a format you can use. Whereas in Vikings Valhalla, yes, there is a format, but you're taking it from a showrunner's point of view, a writer's point of view. I think there's going to be more of a that particular type of author. I mean, the writer from the showrunner is going to be different than an author who already started with I want to try to base this in, hey, what happened if there really is a kingdom, and how would I have a particular character who is both in the Saxon world and in the Viking world at the same time. And I think that he does a pretty good job. I have issues with that show, but I like the show. I like the book, and that's something we'll talk about more about. But in terms of just going back to your whole pagan versus the Vikings, and I don't see a lot of literature on this, but I do remember the whole argument with the Christians and with the Vikings, where one king would say, "Hey, I'm Christian," and then another king would come back, "Nah, we're going to be pagans again. We're going to be worshiping Thor." Whether the question was it as bloody or difficult as it was, I think there were aspects of it. I don't know if it was a wholesale thing, but I do also remember the same thing happening in the Roman Empire when you have Christians versus pagans, where you have one, depending on the emperor, you start off, yeah, they're tolerant towards Christians, and the next emperor will come in and says, nah, we're getting rid of this stuff. We're back to the paganism. And there was a battle, a long time fight between those two forces, before finally where Christianity went out. I mean, Christianity was probably on the ascendant the whole time, but it took a while. And I think the same thing, the process happened here. Yeah, there were Christian Vikings. Many of them were probably Christian in name only, and that's how many of these guys adopted. But as time went on, they started becoming more and more Christian. I mean, look at the Normans are a great example. These were Vikings who came and made a deal and got northern Spain. I mean, the Normandy area of France, and they wholeheartedly joined with the Christian tradition there. The bishops were warrior bishops. They were. You can see that in the Bayeux tapestry. I believe that was commissioned by William the Conqueror's brother. It's like you can see it's a different thing, but they're still having that whole warrior ethos from the Vikings and coming out and kicking butt and fighting. And so it's once they change that, so I think that yeah, there definitely was a battle between them, and I think that their Christianity, these people back then, relative to what we are, they were true believers, a lot of them. And so when they converted from one faith to the next, well, I'm a true believer and you are a pagan, that's not going to rock. So I can definitely see. So I don't think that's a problem at all. I think it's a, it just helps people. It's just another conflict that the showrunner put in to make sure that we're seeing more things happening.
Well, on that we can agree.
Okay. So listen, so we agreed we both like the show. We generally
No,
both
no. You like the show. I did not necessarily like the show.
Oh wow. All right, so cool. Hey, you guys out there, you tell us what you like. Did you like Vikings Valhalla? You tell us if it was which side you agree. Did you enjoy it, or did you didn't like it at all, like Cal did? I think, yeah, there are definitely historical problems, but overall it was an enjoyable show, and I would watch the second season. Cal, on the other hand, it says shoot down the second season. Am I correct?
No, and again, just to be clear, if there's a second season, I'll probably watch it. If I've got, look, I got time to kill. I need something on in the background. Yeah, sure, put this on.
So why don't you just put on elevator music, for God's sakes, then? If that's what you're qualified.
I wish if I knew how to do that, I might do that instead of Vikings Valhalla,
It's
which
the
is
joke.
pretty
It's
much
the joke.
which is pretty much expensive elevator music.
All right then. Hey, I think we'll leave off right there. Thanks everybody for joining. If you like what you hear, give us a thumbs up, comment,
Like,
subscribe,
comment, share, all the good stuff.
spin a rack.
Out.
Out.